better time to issue the new Moscow exchange, and that's their premise itself, in that if the Moscow exchange were to launch tailored to all of the Eurasian nations that have not only spent the last several years accumulating gold, they are the largest accumulators, the largest purchasers of it, the largest miners of it, whatnot. If that were to happen and they were to set the spot price of gold, let's say at 2,500 or 3,000 an ounce, set the spot price of silver, let's say at $50 or $75 an ounce, in a matter of seconds, you'd see arbitrage and everything would be pulled off of the exchange that would be allowed to in the West and sent directly eastward to capitalize on that spread, that bifurcation, as Patrick, one of my favorite guys, mentions. And I think he's probably right. I mean, we are seeing a massive distortion or discrepancy or delineation between spot and between physical product. And so if you were to see an exchange that would actually properly reflect what metals should be, rather than allow this manipulation where the open interest in silver can be 1,500% greater than the bars backing it, then we would have a real market, not one that is make-believe. And I think it would very quickly create havoc for the LME and for the COMEX. It would render it completely and totally neutered or obsolete. So yeah, I think Patrick is right. You take a look at a Silver Eagle selling at $16 or $17 over the price of silver. You look at Gold Eagles selling at 11 or 12 or 13% over the price of gold. In many respects, you're beginning to see this. And even when you go all the way down into 100-ounce bars, selling at roughly 4 times the premium I've ever sold them for in my entire career. So yeah, it's happening. And it's one of these deals that I think not only is it happening, I think we haven't seen anything yet. When it really gets tight, those premiums will only go higher and higher and higher, because you're talking about a very small pool of available metal.
That's where I think, back to my preparedness roots, we always talk about being the gray man. I'm trying to condense this down, but basically I talk to old timer clients who call me back, and they've been stacking metal for 40 years or 30 years or 20 years or whatever, and they go, oh, I never pay more than fill in the blank, $1 or $2 over spot or whatever, and so I'll just wait because this market is too rich for my blood or whatever. And I understand when you have runaway bubble markets, but I don't think we're even, when you have less than 0.5% of investments in this entire class of assets, I don't think you can call it a bubble market. I think it's a fundamental exposition of the underlying basically repression that's been happening, and that's where that bifurcation is coming from, because the physical just can't change hands. People are not willing to accept that artificially low price for the exchange of physical. Another thing that you mentioned, arbitrage and bifurcation. I just want to remind people what you talked about too, the little man rule that you learned in Econ 101 about the little man always loses, because by that time the big players already positioned themselves. I recall back in the COVID collapse thing, and then the immediate basic government bailout programs that were coming out. So one of them was this PPP program for a small employer to apply for all this money to help and everything. And our accountant said, don't worry, we got you covered. We're going to apply, la, la, la. Our bank said, don't worry, we're going to get you covered. We're going to apply, help. By the time our application got in round 2 or round 3 or whatever, they said, oh, the money's all gone. What? And they said, yeah, well, these big companies were in there first, and they had all these teams of lawyers and teams of accountants, and they had it all figured out, and they cleaned out, so there's no funds available. So everybody who's thinking as a small timer that you're going to execute your brilliant plan when prices get smacked down, or when finally people realize that it really is go time because the stuff's about to run out, or this arbitrage opportunity pops up between real physical prices versus artificial paper prices, don't think that the little guy is going to be able to execute at that point, because the big guys will already have done it. So that gets back to the preparedness aspect of being the gray man. You're so much better off in the calm times, in the boring times, in the not popular times, just chipping away, getting what you can, and then you got to kind of just sit back and let the crowd fight over the last roll of toilet paper on the shelf at the store, and don't be in that feeding frenzy.
Yeah, well, Dunnigan, I mean, to your point, last week, 5% of all the good delivery bars were delivered off of Comex in gold in one day. In one day. And if you go back a few months ago, 40% of all the kilo bars on Comex that I think back the mini contracts, 40% were delivered in one day. You look at the amount of silver being drained off of the LME and off of Comex to record low levels. Well, who's taking all of this metal? Where is it all going? It's the people who are closest to the information. It's the biggest money in the world. It is repositioning using the cover of suppression in prices to drain the exchanges. And don't think that these people don't understand how powerful the suppression of price is. And, because they realize that most people don't look underneath the hood. You talk to someone who understands silver and they'll be voracious about its virtues. You talk to someone who is a financial advisor who is very well versed in finance and in economics, and they'll say, well, the price hasn't done anything. It's a piece of crap. Why would you buy it? This is the distinction, is that even someone who's highly educated and is very proficient in economics, if they don't look under the hood, if they just simply look at the price the way most people do, it allows to easily misdirect and manipulate. And that's exactly what is happening. If I didn't see, and really since 2020, when we started talking about the rise of the others, this group of very knowledgeable private traders thought to be sovereign wealth funds and family offices, if I did not see them systematically draining the exchanges of metal since 2020, I would have been less optimistic and bullish about where metal is going. But it is very obvious to me, along with many of the other things that I talk about to you, that they are using the misdirection, the suppression of the metals prices in order to literally drain them dry. And that isn't hyperbole. That's not, this is happening. When you can see as much silver delivered to the country of India in 1 month as is backing the entire price setting mechanism of the globe, there's a problem. And I think the same thing can be said of the LME. When you have the lowest amount of silver backing the LME than we've ever seen. And this is probably, now I'm just a little bit of a supposition here, because of all of the exchange for physical, where companies or traders have COMEX contracts, and instead of standing for delivery and bleeding COMEX dry, which is a little bit more obvious, they exchange it for physical, and that physical is off the London Metals Exchange, so they can pull it off over there in a little bit more private fashion. Any way you look at it, the biggest money is doing exactly what you're saying, not only in silver, but also more recently here in gold. And so it's happening where we all wake up one day and say, geez, how'd that happen? And the people who have prepared, who have used the cover of manipulation or the manipulated prices to accumulate copious amounts, while most people in this country wouldn't have a clue what you and I are talking about right now, COMEX, manipulation, what are you talking about? They're using this rhetoric or the lack of discussion on this topic where it should be talked about. I mean, the fact that you have these situations and our media doesn't cover it at all, maybe that actually is more reason to believe that this is truly happening, that the insiders, the big money, the fact that only 4 companies control every media outlet in the United States, radio, newspaper, magazine, television, you name it, the information that is being fed to us is filtered for a reason. Maybe everyone up at that level is in on it. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know, but what I can tell you is that it's disappearing in ways that I've never seen, and it's starting at the top from the biggest exchanges in the world, which are being bled down all the way down to the retail market, which, other than where everything was gone, is it's just it's unlike anything I've ever seen. The cupboards are really bare, and I'm concerned what it looks like into the last month of this year. I think that there may be a little bit more coming in through November, but you get through Thanksgiving, and I don't think you have a snowball's chance in Haiti of getting anything substantive before year's end. And I think that's what people should really be prepared for.